Okay. Well, welcome. Sometimes technical difficulties. Woo! Throw you last minute, don't they? But here I am. So welcome to Ninja Homeschoolers. I'm Jill Wolf, creative learning coach, and I help homeschool parents to spark creativity and customize the learning experience in order to build challenging and supportive experiences for their kids. And I'm excited tonight to be talking about socialization. This is part of a three-part series, and so everyone seems to be very concerned with homeschool families and the socialization factor, because it's always the first thing brought up whenever any of us share, oh, I'm homeschooling, or I'm going to homeschool, or I've chosen to homeschool. Up comes, but what about socialization, or what about social skills and things like that? So I decided to do a little bit of a series on this, and this is number 3. So let me give you a quick review for those who didn't hear 1 or 2. They are in my Ninja Homeschooler group, so you can go look at those if you're part of my group. If you're not, come join my group. You can see those there. But real quickly, what I did, in number 1, I addressed 3 misconceptions about socialization. The first misconception is that schools teach it. They do not. They merely provide a place for your child to practice social skills. There's no instruction that goes on there. Number 2, that the playground is a great place to learn good social behavior and how to stand up for yourself. It is not. It is a place actually where our children learn to survive. And so survival skills in the social world is much different than good social behavior and mature responses. Number 3, that you owe people an explanation of your homeschooling socialization intentions and plan. You do not. You don't owe anyone an explanation. You should have a plan, but you don't have to explain it to people. So that was the first one. We addressed just some misconceptions and frustrations that I think are out there about what socialization, what goes on at the school and what schools provide, and the fact that if you're pulling them out of school, what about all this? So in number 2, we looked at what is socialization and how is it learned. And we took a dive into the fact that socialization is good social behavior. It's not the place that it's practiced. It's the behavior that's practiced in a wide range of spaces. We also talked about how it's learned by observation. And guess who is being observed the most of the time? You, the parents. So social skills are learned. Social behavior is learned by observing the parents. There is some natural things that I think based on personality and our own struggles that little ones are born with, but for the most part, interactions with others, how to handle certain emotional feelings and things that well up, that's all learned. So that's kind of sobering. We said, what if I don't model great behavior? If it is learned from me and I don't model it well, what can I do? And we talked about how really then it's a chance to model the next step of really good behavior, which is owning and apologizing for it. Instead of blaming circumstances or people around you, own your own behavior, mishaps, your own mistakes, and apologize to those who got hurt as a result. And that itself is modeling good social behavior with respect to making mistakes in a social situation and how to recover from them. I gave you a challenge at the end of Socialization 2, and I said, I want you to go with your spouse and write down the social behaviors that you want to teach your kids. Whether it's just the focus for this year or over the next however many years, and depending on the age of your kids, what are the social behaviors that you really want to teach? And so I didn't see any posts, but I'm going to pose that again and say, if you haven't done it, do it. Sit down and just think about it. And you don't have to spend hours and hours. Just come up with 3 or 4 even. It'll get the wheels turning. And then as you begin to be more intentional, which we're going to talk about today, then you're going to start to see that knowing what I really want to teach my child is important. It's very similar to having academic learning goals. You're just setting some learning goals now for social behaviors. Okay, so tonight, yay, what we're all here for, intentional practice. What do I mean by that? Well, intentional practice comes down to 3 steps: prep, coach, debrief. And so let me elaborate on these. Prep. Well, we go into social situations all the time. We're going into the grocery store. We're going into Costco. I hear my son making all these noises on the other side of the door. If you hear those, I apologize. He's just a little spazzy right now. But we go into a lot of social situations. Some that we as adults completely it's so off our radar that this is a social situation, the grocery store or Costco, all the way to we're going to grandma's, or we're going to the park to play with friends, or we're going to church and you go into this group and I go into that one, or Girl Scouts or Boy Scouts, or a date if your children are older, or a dance. I mean, there's so many social situations out there. And this 3 steps of intentional practice is meant to help your child before they get to high stakes situations. So just like you would teach your child some basics about dancing before they went to their first dance, you're going to teach them some basic social behaviors, and we're going to work with those and get a chance to practice them before they're in a high stakes situation. So prep is the first step. And what I mean by that is this: it's the before discussion. So before we go into grandma's house, before we go into the convalescent home, before we go into the playground setting with our friends, we talk about what is going to be expected or what we're going to focus on. So intentional practice not only is prepping for what we as adults are expecting the child, how we want them to behave, but also what we could focus on. So let me come back to that 1 second. You can't anticipate every kind of problem that's going to potentially happen in a social setting. And so you can, but you can 1 or 2. So it's up to you to consider what social setting is this? Who are we meeting? What could possibly come up? And then how can I prep my child for how to behave in that situation? Or at least help them become more aware of it. And let me give you some examples. Number 1, you're going to head to the playground with your friend, with your girlfriend and her child. And the little girl is one that really struggles with sharing. And whether or not that mom and that is working with that little girl on that, you're working with your child to interact in this setting. So you can prep your child by saying, look, sharing I know is hard, and little so-and-so is having a hard time with it. So today what we're going to do is we're going to show extra kindness by sharing more than maybe you're used to. So every time she wants something or she's kind of getting mean or frustrated, just go ahead and share, give it to her. I know that's not easy to do, but that's how we're going to show some extra kindness today. And it'll just keep us from having arguments or little fights. So we're going to try this. So you kind of prep them for this. Another prep. Let's say your daughter, a little bit older, loves to talk about herself. Go figure, girls loving to talk. But anyway, let's say your little one, maybe she's 10, 12, she loves to talk. And whether or not it's about herself, it's just talk. And you're going to go into a situation with maybe some family, and you want to say, hey, you know what, tonight we're going to have you focus on not talking about yourself the whole time. I know this is something you struggle with, and in social settings, you want to have discussions, or you want to talk to the other person, give them a chance to talk. So our focus for tonight, I want you to try to focus on asking questions. Ask questions of the person that you're sitting there talking to. So instead of just going on and going on, I want you to take a deep breath, realize you're doing it, and then ask a question. Be more interested in them than you are in talking about who you are. So again, you're prepping not just for an expectation and what the situation is, but maybe even a focus on a particular behavior that they're struggling with. They're getting a chance to practice. It's with family. It's a great time to practice this. On a date is not the time to practice it. You want to know how to do this by then, but right now, okay? Or here's a third one. Your son struggles with getting angry easily. And so you prep them by, okay, I know you're going to, science class today, and I know the little boy that sits next to you bothers you. He takes your stuff, and I know you've tried to talk to him, and the teacher's not intervening. So we're going to have you sit somewhere else, And then if this boy somehow finds you or does this, then when you get angry, when you notice yourself getting angry, I want you to walk to the door, walk outside. And I'm going to be waiting outside. Okay? So if you feel like this is just more than I can deal with, I'm going to go talk to my mom, then you just come walk out there. So you're kind of prepping them. So it's expectations, it's what's the situation, it's maybe even a focus, or even anticipating this has been a problem before, here's how you could react. So you're prepping them so they're not totally blindsided by this situation when they get there. So that's prep. And then there's coaching. So by the way, if you have any questions, feel free to write them in. Even if you're not watching this live, you're watching the replay, put the questions in. I would love to respond and answer as I can. Coaching, this one is during. So while prep is before, coaching is during. And as your kids get older, you are less and less there during the social interaction. So the more you can do younger, the better. This is subtle. You're not meant to be helicopter mom. You want to allow your child a chance to recover maybe it's something that didn't quite go as smoothly, or to even rise above it. You do step in if it looks extreme, but you want to give them a shot at it. But you're just watching from a distance, kind of observing, taking some notes. Even if you guys have made some arrangement, like let's say your son with the sharing, and you can just tell he's beginning to just about have shared as much as he can, then you get within eye shot and you just give a thumbs up, like, I know this is tough for you, you're doing a great job. Or you go whisper that to him, something just little sweet and encouraging. It's acknowledging that they're working on this particular social thing that you guys have prepped and talked about, and that you're noticing that they're doing it. You want to help them notice that they're doing it too. So maybe the daughter who's struggling with the talking thing, you just come stand right beside her and put your arm around her, and you ask a question like, you know what? She was talking about it. Have you ever done something like that? You know, Uncle John, I know you used to do this. Why don't you tell her about it? And help her with a question. Help her redirect to let this other person talk. That's subtle coaching that to everybody else just like looks like, oh, but you are being very intentional about when to step in and when to not, when to give them the thumbs up or wave, like, you know, and anything that you can do that's during to help bring their attention, their awareness to it, encourage them, or help them along with this. That's the second one. That's coaching. The third is debrief. And this is the one that usually gets overlooked because of time and exhaustion. And quite honestly, because at the very last minute of this social setting, something bizarre happened or something extreme happened. So it comes down to, I'm debriefing with my child the whole social situation, not just that one thing that happened at the end. So let's say that little guy has been sharing, and he just can't stand it anymore, and he grabs the toy and he runs. Well, you know, he's been really working hard to share the whole time, and you want to make sure that that gets recognized and celebrated and applauded. Yeah, you know what? I saw you must have shared like 20 times. And that last time, I know it was just too much. But look, you did it 20 times. So come back to the bigger picture. And it's not just about applause and celebration and yeah, you want some of that for sure. And you want to notice their victories and their accomplishments and how they overcame, even if it's just a step. You can also address things that you saw. So let's say there was nothing really we were focusing on. There was nothing, and you just noticed that this person, maybe your son was rolling his eyes a lot when talking to grandma. Young men rolling their eyes at grandma. Shocker. But let's say you've noticed this for, okay, I didn't notice you ever did that before. Now you're doing it. It can be something that you bring up to address. Remember, you can't address everything, but debrief's a chance to say, I noticed this. Maybe that's something we can work on next time. It's just a time to talk about the good and the bad and what you had prepped for, maybe what you coached through, and now kind of at the end, many, in fact, a lot of organizations and teams go through a debrief at the end of something to do this very thing, talk about what went well, what didn't. So maybe we had a team retreat, and at the end of the retreat, we have a debrief about how sessions went and how we communicated. This idea of debriefing how something went is very common. It's very healthy. I believe wholeheartedly in it because I think from what I've read in research, it really strengthens what we're learning. So if I'm learning a behavior, if you as the parent are trying to modify even some behavior, then to debrief at the end just really gives it some punch. And so don't skip that step. So I want to give you a couple examples of this whole kind of process being used. My nephew, when he was young, really struggled. I think he still does. They've got a handle on it now, but had a real struggle with his temper. And little kids, students in his class used to bother him and he would explode. And so they had to begin to do some work with him about knowing when this anger was building, being able to be aware of it, to know, oh, this is triggering me. Here's my reaction. So instead of reacting bad, here's going to be my good reaction. I'm going to go. So they did a lot of debrief of bad things that had happened. And then they started to do prep into situations so that he was of the mindset, be aware of this. It was a reminder. And then when they were together as a family somewhere, then there'd be kind of some coaching going on. And it really took these 3 steps over and over and over to help him get to a place that now he can go and he can recognize if something's triggering him and he knows to step away. He can cool himself down. He can come back. And at this time, I think he's only 11 or 12. So he's been doing this since 6. This is pretty young to be so aware of his own emotions, his own behavior, and owning it. But it took an extreme thing to trigger it. But I'm saying as parents, especially homeschool parents, who are going to see our kids so much and feel very responsible for this, you have the chance to start them thinking and understanding and being aware of their behavior through this process now, early, even before it's anything extreme. Another friend of mine had a daughter who was just painfully shy, just painful, like she couldn't say hi to anybody. So she took her with her to Costco during the sample time, where they have all those samples out for you to try. And the mom would walk up with the daughter to the sample lady, and the daughter was just to say, hi, what makes this product better than others? It was just a very honest question about the food themselves, but she was initiating some kind of interaction with someone she didn't know, but she had a question. It was low maintenance. It was not emotional. It was not personal. And then she just got used to being able to talk to them. That was the first step. So her mom would prep her for this. She'd coach her. She'd let her walk up and ask and wait. And then afterwards they talk about how that wasn't that bad. Oh, my hands were so sweaty. So there was this process going on as mom was trying to help her come out of being so shy she couldn't talk to anyone. Okay, again, using this process to be very intentional, get some intentional practice. And Costco, no stakes there. You're never going to see these people again, right? Why not? When I was growing up, my parents took us to a convalescent home once a month just to visit the people there and kind of give of ourselves. Now, we were really little. My sisters and I probably my littlest one was 2. We're all 2 years apart, so 2, 4, 6, 8. And we would go and we would just go up and down the halls and we'd go in and we'd talk to these people, and lots of these people had no family or no family that visited. So seeing somebody was a big deal. And we'd go in and just chat or listen, or my 2-year-old sister was just like, right? And these just my son is almost 2 and he's doing that. And grandmas and grandpas just eat it up. And so before we went, my parents prepped us. Now, my younger two sisters were so young. They just went in and kind of were so just real and raw with these grandma and grandpas. Whereas my second sister and I, we were able to start to smell the place. It had a very distinct old person, someone just wet their bed, feces, I mean, all that kind of smell of an old folks home. And that was so hard for me to not make faces, walk around plugging my nose. My mom's like, okay. So in prep, she would say, okay, we're not going to plug our nose. I want you to try to breathe in your mouth. So she was prepping me for what we were going to encounter there again. When we were there, she'd coach me through it, debrief after we talked about it. But for us older sisters, we needed some help because we were much more aware of what was going on there. A lot of the people had no teeth, or they'd take their teeth out while you're talking to them. Here's this 8-year-old, I'm all, oh my God, the lady's teeth are in her cup. And just being real saying that, but that's not appropriate. So mom and dad had to do some coaching with that. You as a family, you may be taking your kids to some place where there's going to be some people that are different. I remember the first time I met somebody missing a limb. I was an adult. And I remember I was so self-conscious of staring or of saying something or of being overly helpful, like they couldn't do anything, which, they don't. I'm capable of doing stuff, and don't assume I'm not. And so I was all over the page trying to figure out how to socially interact in a way that was appropriate and kind and not awkward. And that's as an adult. So imagine our kids when they're coming in things. So if you have things planned where you're going to be encountering some things that might look or feel or smell different, especially if you're doing service of some kind, and there are going to be some people that are, less than perfect there, then we need to do some prep with our kids for that. Going into social settings just with friends at the park. Instead of saying, oh, we're just going to go to the park, all these people go. Okay, so there's going to be a lot of kids there today, and then you talk about some of the interactions that might come up and some of the things that you want to prep them for so that they're aware of it, so that they can be thinking about it, so you can, coach and be observing, and they have the chance to practice. We're coming back to this. These are opportunities for kids to practice good social behavior. They're learning it at home. They're observing it be modeled by mom and dad, whether it's mom interacting with girlfriends, mom and dad interacting with his dad. I mean, they're observing and learning it here, good and bad. And then we as parents set up opportunities for them to practice it, and for us to even modify some if it's not going so well. And so as intentional as we can be, and by intentional, I'm referring to these two steps. We prep. So we're planning a situation, we prep, we coach, we debrief. It's not just about finding a place where there's kids their age and we go. There's this intentional piece to it where I'm actually coaching and helping you understand the right social behavior and how yours is and where we need to work and celebrate where you did really well, because the truth of the matter is that in every situation, it's hard to be socially appropriate all the time. And so when we can practice with them and give them a chance to practice, and not just practice like go practice, but some, again, prep, coaching, and debrief. So I see my time, and whoa, I went long tonight, but I was really excited to get to share all these examples with you because I think it's a powerful opportunity. I think those who don't homeschool, their kids are learning it from them, and then they're practicing at school without the benefit of, they might get a little prep as mom's dropping them off at 7:30 or 8. But if this doesn't happen until noon or at lunchtime or at the end of the day, the chances are they don't remember what we prepped. I'm not there to coach or even observe so we can talk about later. All I can do is maybe at best debrief in the car if they even remember the details. So they're kids, so when individuals come at us as homeschoolers saying, what about socialization? It's like, what? I actually have a better opportunity. Oh, okay. Hopefully I'm still on. My internet, it looked like it took a punch. As a homeschooler, I have a chance to do much more with social skill development and social behavior learning than any kid that gets to just go to a school. So I find it a privilege to get to deal with socialization as a homeschool parent. And so for me, actually going through writing this series has really helped me come down off of a place of being so offended or frustrated when people ask this question to a place more of feeling like, you know what? You might be worried about it, but for me, I am so excited to get to build into my child this way because other parents don't get this. They don't get this opportunity. They do on evenings and weekends, for sure. But there's so many other things going that for me to be able to intentionally practice with my child and help coach them with social behavior is just, I feel really lucky to get to do that. So I'm going to challenge you with this. I want you to pick. So challenge from last time was to write down the social behaviors you want. And even if you get just 2 or 3, just get something on the page. What I want you to do is pick one that you would like to work on for the next 6 months. Consider how can you set up opportunities where they're going to have a chance to practice this. And then I want you to roughly plan how you're going to prep, coach, and debrief. Just some ideas. Okay, so we're going to meet this person, or this is the goal. I want my child really to get comfortable sharing, or I really want my child to understand how to greet, or it's important to me that my child be able to agree and disagree appropriately. So I want to put them in situations where they're going to get a chance to practice that. Well, that's going to require having some dialogue, maybe on controversial topics or with adults that would have an opinion. Maybe another 10 or 12-year-old isn't going to have an opinion about this topic, but you pick the behavior, you consider how could I set up opportunities to practice this? And then I want you to consider how am I going to prep, coach, and debrief this? Because my goal is in 6 months that I've helped to develop this social skill. In some way, I've moved it forward in my child. I think when it comes down to this, it's about being intentional. That's why I call it intentional practice. For those who are like doing field trips with friends every other week, that could be your setting. So pick something you want to focus on, let that be your setting, and every 2 weeks, you're going to do kind of a cycle of prep, coach, debrief, and focus on that particular behavior that you want to work with that group. If you have Girl Scouts once a week, there's a lot of things that we do once a week, and it doesn't even have to be that often. But it has to be where that particular behavior is going to very naturally kind of rear its head so that your child has a chance to practice it there. But be very intentional with this. And I think you're going to find, wow, this isn't that hard. It's just being aware of it and being intentional with it versus I'm just going to plan a play date and then whatever happens, happens. And it's kind of by accident that you end up saying, okay, well, we don't hit, right? Instead of noticing this, go, okay, so we're going to go and we're going to talk about hitting, right? And that be your issue. But whatever it is, I want you to pick a behavior, consider how you're going to practice it and where, and then how you're going to set up and coach, and then do some. And I'd love for you to come share how it's going. I really want to hear if any of this is helpful and how it's helpful and how it's playing out in conversation with your kids. Just know this, you're learning too. So you may overstep your bounds in coaching and interrupt the chance for your child to like come through on their own, or you might step on their toes in debrief and say too much, address too many. You're learning how to do this too. So be graceful with yourself and your child, and know that intentional practice is you're learning how to lead it, and they're learning social skills in the process. And so that's what I want you to come share with us, because I'm excited to hear how whatever I'm sharing can translate into some action for you and the learning that you're having as a result. So it's Thursday evening. I hope you guys have a fabulous rest of your night if you're watching tonight. If not till tomorrow, then have a great weekend. And I'm excited to come visit you again next Thursday for our live. And between now and then, look for some prompts and some exciting things that I'm rolling out. And today's February 1st, so yay! Oh my goodness, we're in a new month. So have a great February, early February, and I will talk to you soon. Okay? Bye, guys.